Hello, I'm Paul Pfeiffer. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Anderson Trucking Service. I'm here to talk about the state of the truckload transportation industry in 2025. So if you're a shipper, hopefully there's some meaningful information in here for you. There is a lot of activity and uncertainty swirling as we head into 2025 under a new administration in the White House. In fact, the question that I probably get asked these days the most as I walk through the hallways at ATS is, what's President Trump going to do and how's that going to impact our industry? The honest and truthful, simple answer is, I don't know. But that wouldn't make for a very good video now, would it? I'm going to try to take some of the different data points that I have and I watch from all the different angles and piece it together with just a couple of comments and maybe educated guesses about what's going to happen in 2025. There's three areas that I'm going to touch on as I piece those comments together. The first is, what is the new administration going to do? The second is, where is our economy at these days? And then the third is, how do those two things impact the state of the truckload transportation industry in 2025? Similar to President Trump's first administration, he's going after many of the things, not all, but many of the things that he said out on the campaign trail. And he's starting with all of the things that he believes that he can do on his own, right? A series of executive orders that are being put in place that cover a really wide swath of things, from foreign policy issues to social issues to border security. There's two in particular that I'm interested in watching because I think they have a more direct impact on the transportation industry. One is border security, and not necessarily for the fact that it's about the security of the border, but it's about the tool that he's using, which is tariffs. The second area that I'm interested in watching is how he's trying to spur economic activity in the U.S. by lowering regulation. If you recall, in his first term, he used the legislature and the Tax Reform and Jobs Act in order to be able to spur economic activity. Now he's using executive orders and Department of Government Efficiency in order to be able to basically do two things at once: eliminate some of the regulation by eliminating the agencies, and then also he's driving down government spend and the deficit spending that we're currently in. What's going to be the result of those two particular areas? I'm not exactly sure, but one thing that I do know is I can see already the uncertainty that it's driving, and that uncertainty is leading to volatility in supply chains, and that does have an impact. I'm going to come back to that comment in just a minute. So let's look at the second area then on what's the state of the economy. 2/3 of our economy is driven by consumer spend. The other is by kind of the industrial and durable goods side. The 2/3 driven by consumer spending, it is in a spot where the consumer is still tilted a little more towards buying services than they are buying goods that would travel on a truck. But even that spending is starting to slow. On the other part of the economy, that other third, the industrial production and durable goods side, they're not in great shape either. They're not getting a lot worse, but they're not getting a lot better. Manufacturing is still in a contraction territory, and industrial spend is down. Most of the economists that I look at have the GDP growth forecasts in 2025 starting with a 2. Many of them in the low 2% range, which isn't even the level of inflation. Now, I do believe that some of those are basically negatively being influenced by the threat of tariffs, and so the actual GDP is likely to be a little bit higher in 2025 than some of the current forecasts. What I'm telling all of our businesses is, hey, assume basically the same level of depressed economic demand that we've seen through 2024. Things aren't going to get a lot worse, but they're not going to get a lot better. And if we use that as our planning assumption, I think we'll be pretty safe. So you got the administration, you got the economic items. What's happening in truckload transportation then? Well, if you think back to 2024, about mid to late part of the year, I believe we hit equilibrium in supply and demand in our business. What do I mean by that? The freight demand roughly equaled the supply of trucks that we had to move freight throughout the U.S. When that happens, contract rates and spot rates fall to the bottom, and they're roughly equal as well. And I think that's where we were at the end of 2024, entering into 2025. So if I was going to make one prediction for 2025, it's that rates are going to go up. The supply and demand being in balance and contract rates and spot rates being roughly equal coupled with the fact that there is, volatility in the supply chain based on much of the uncertainty, it is going to push rates higher. Just look at what's happening already just based on the threat of tariffs. Port traffic is up and container rates are up. And that'll eventually, kind of flow through the truck side within the U.S. as well. Other examples that we can look at are back in October when the hurricanes went through the Carolinas and other states, and they started those rebuild efforts. There was a 3-week period of time that soaked up just enough capacity in that area, but it sent spot rates up across the country. Similar in January, the winter weather that hit the South that aren't used to dealing with that kind of weather also sent freight to the spot markets, which had higher rates for a couple of week period of time. So it does not take much change in the demand side of things in order to be able to tighten rates and send them higher. When I think about what's to come in 2025 then, and will there be more uncertainty and volatility? Yeah, the answer is yes. And some of the activities that I expect to have happen that will push rates up also are, look, there's going to be rebuilding efforts in Southern California from the absolutely devastating wildfires. There is going to be, a return of just kind of the normal seasonal cycle of business. And even if freight demand isn't a lot higher, just that seasonal cyclicality is going to be enough to tighten up capacity at certain times and push rates up. And eventually the contract rates will follow. But you still have the uncertainty of what's going to go on in the U.S. and with the Trump administration. And the tariffs, well, as I talk to our salespeople from all over the country, one of the things that I'm being told is that they have seen a significant increase in phone calls from their customers frantically trying to move freight across the U.S. in a short period of time, just in relation to that threat of tariff activity. So, good or bad, these are the situations where ATS thrives. We're able to meet that customer request to move that freight quickly when some others might not be able to. And the resulting impact of that freight moving over to the spot market, pushing rates up, really helps our drivers who desperately need it right now. I don't have a whole lot more than that, but I do expect to see you sometime soon in 2025 in another video as maybe this uncertainty starts to become a little bit clearer. In the meantime, stay tuned and be safe. Thank you.